I know when to go out. I know when to stay in. Get things done.
I catch the paper boy when things don't really change. I'm standing in the wind, but I never wave bye-bye. But I try. There's no sign of life. It's just the power to charm. I'm lying in the rain, but I never wave bye-bye. But I try. Never gonna fall for walks beside me, walks on by, gets me to the church on time. Terrifies me, makes me party, puts my trust in God and man. No confession, no religion, don't believe in modern love. It's not really work, it's just the power to charm. Still standing in the wind, but I never wave bye-bye. But I try. Never gonna fall for walks beside me, walks on by, gets me to the church on time. Terrifies me, makes me party, puts my trust in God and man. No confession, no religion, don't believe in modern love.
Hey guys, good morning. How's everyone doing? Happy Friday. How are we all doing out there? Good morning. Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Happy Friday.
Hey, there we go.
Joseph
Good
Limo.
Hey there. I know you get the Larry with hair today. All right, let's get this party started here. As always, first and foremost, Dan, welcome, man. Glad to see you're already on here, ready to rock. We're gonna kick the Hey there. We're gonna kick the meeting off with some wins for the week before we dive in. So I'd love to hear from you guys. We need 3 wins before we get started. What do you guys got out there today?
These guys are shy today, Joseph Limo.
I don't know what happened. Larry goes away and everyone gets quiet on us.
I know. Well, listen, I didn't want to steal anyone's thunder, but I'll go. I've got 2 wins. My first win is I woke up this morning. That's awesome.
Good place to start.
Yeah, and then the second win, the business win, is we just sold a property that was supposed to sell for about 800. We ended up getting 890.
Nice.
23 offers. So very excited for those sellers.
That's awesome, man. How long was that property on the market?
14 days, Joseph Limo.
I love it, man. Nice work. Nice work, Mr. Weichelt. That's a beautiful win. Who's got some more wins to share with us? What's going on out there? I know you guys are killing it. I hear it every week.
I had two closings this week, two more closings for next week, and that'll end up with seven for March. So March is a good month.
That's not too bad there, Ben. Congratulations. And what market are you in?
Atlanta.
Atlanta. Congratulations, man. That's a really good end of the first quarter of 2025 right there. It's fire. All right, we need one more. Who's got one more great win for us so we can get the party started?
I do. Just closed one here in Phoenix. Buyers moved here from Florida to be closer to family. So that just closed this week.
Congratulations, Natasha. That's a great one. Thank you for sharing. And thank you guys again for being on nice and early this morning. We have a very special guest, someone that Larry has a great relationship with, and that's Mr. Dan Noma with Easy Street. Dan, good morning. Thank you for being on, man. We're really excited to hear from you today.
Good morning. Thanks, guys. Excited to kick
Yeah.
things off.
So
So Larry didn't
Dan,
give me a ton of color on how you guys kick this off. So you tell me how you want this to flow.
well, I was going to ask you, do you have anything that you want to like share your screen and rock and
Yeah,
roll for a little bit?
yeah, for sure. Let's dive right in if you guys are ready to rock and roll.
Absolutely, because I
Uh,
know, everyone's pretty excited to hear about, Easy Street, some of the updates and like how it can really benefit our business, man. So the floor is yours,
cool.
bud.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that I haven't had the chance to meet, I'm Dan. I'm the CEO of a company called Easy Street Offers, and my background with Larry probably starts about 20 years ago in Phoenix here. So we were REO brokers together, and kind of cut our teeth in the REO and short sale industry, and kind of working in the distress markets. And then through that period, my business was a bit different. I had always worked with real estate investors, so I thought maybe that getting out of college that there was some sort of a gap between residential real estate agents and what was available in commercial real estate brokerage for home buyers or potential investors. So I started building a business just representing real estate investors around the industry. And so Larry and I got to know each other because I started buying a lot of his REOs on behalf of my investor database. And so we started working together in that space. But fast forward to about 2006, one of my clients came to me with this idea that he was going to turn single family homes into public companies. And, I told him he was absolutely crazy. And I was like, what do you mean? We're going to buy a disconnected group of single family homes when we could just go buy a multifamily project and get the same general return? Like it just didn't make sense at the time. And, fast forward a little bit, he took one of my broken models to Blackstone. He raised $40 million, and that is what's now known today as Invitation Homes, the largest owner of single family homes in the country. So I had the opportunity to work with Invitation and Blackstone on their first single family REIT. Actually worked for the first three, and then worked for basically every major institution in the country on acquisition of off market or pre MLS inventory. And so I've kind of built a business in the last 17 or 18 years now, working in the off market world. And how do we acquire off market properties as real estate investors, and like where do those properties come from? So fast forward a little bit forward, 2022, my team did about 4,600 transactions in Arizona and Nevada, just representing buyers and just representing institutions to buy single family homes. And all of those properties we acquired by way of real estate agent partnerships. So my vision of like a marketplace for real estate agents to use and leverage, almost like an iBuyer, to access this group of real estate investors was pretty important to me. And so 2024 is when we stood up what we now call Easy Street Offers. And Easy Street Offers really is a two-sided real estate marketplace. So on the supply side of our marketplace, 100% of our demand comes, or 100% of our supply comes by way of real estate agents and real estate agent partnerships. So think of us as maybe like an Open Door, OfferPad, or Zillow Offers when they existed. Agents are submitting their properties to us, right? And then we're fully underwriting and evaluating those properties and giving them back an offer on that property so that they can represent cash offer. The difference between us and say an iBuyer like an Open Door OfferPad is the fact that we're not the principal. So we're never the principal. We're also not competing with real estate agents. So agents take our offers directly to the seller. They can represent these offers as their own network of real estate investors. It's not something a consumer can get on their own. So it was very important to us that we build this, on behalf of agents and create something really cool for real estate agents. So,
Dan, do you mind if I ask you really quick
yeah,
why the agent-centric model? I mean, obviously that's music to our ears, right? We love that
yeah.
there is really that partnership approach, but where did that spark from?
So I spent a lot of time with Open Door. So I was an early investor in Open Door, and spent a lot of time working with those guys. And you guys may remember an education platform that I had out there. Larry and I actually worked together quite a bit on it. It was called iReal Estate Pro, and I was teaching real estate agents how to work with iBuyers. And the idea was that you would, get a listing appointment, or you would have a listing presentation. And you might be going to that listing presentation, and maybe your only option was the go-to-market strategy. And I knew that, in my market, what really worked is that I could bring multiple options to the seller. And if I could deliver this cash offer option alongside of the go-to-market strategy, my close ratio started to go up significantly. So in my travels and working with agents around the country, though, what I learned is that the real estate agent just didn't like the idea that these companies were competing with them, right? They'd go on the listing appointment, and then the customer would drive out of the office driveway, and there would be a giant Open Door billboard at the end of the driveway. That really started to bother real estate agents, that they were competing with them. So I said, there's a place for this. Like, agents need it, but I can understand why they don't want to be competed with, right? And I can understand why they feel like this is very competitive. So if we create something different, and set it up differently, I think that we can solve for a few different problems that some of those iBuyers that came before us have.
No, I love that. And again, I love the agent-centric approach, or like that true partnership mentality. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that it was probably an easier path not to stay committed to that, but we appreciate that you have.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's honestly been a great journey. The agent partnerships, like I said, is built. That's where I built my business. When Blackstone came to us and they said, my first assignment from them was to buy 2,000 homes. So, I remember like the day calling Larry and saying, "Hey, Larry, oh my God, I've got to buy 2,000 houses. How many REOs can I buy? Like, do you have access to this many?" And of course, at the time, we didn't have access to that many, and we cannibalized the MLS market pretty quickly. I started marketing direct to consumer, and I was sending about 150,000 mail pieces a month in my market,
Hmm.
which this was prior to digital ads and prior to anything that you could do on the internet to generate a lead. And it was really expensive because I was a one-trick pony. I didn't have a retail team listing properties. I was delivering a cash offer. And so customers would call and they would say, "Hey, I got your letter. It says I got a buyer for your property. Would you be interested in selling?" "I'm interested." And I would say, "Okay, here's our cash offer on the property." And they would go, "Well, I don't really want that cash offer." "Okay, well, have a nice day." And that was the end of the lead, right? So that
Yeah.
became very expensive for us to go direct to consumer. But once I aggregated real estate agent groups and I started leveraging their listing appointments, and they were going out on the appointments, and I was actually helping them close more deals, there's a certain percentage of time, like I'm the first one to tell you guys, I don't think the cash offer is for everybody.
Hmm.
I think that the cash offer is a great lead generator. And I think that there's a certain percentage of people that you'll meet when you market that way, that are not only going to want the cash offer, but the cash offer probably is the best option for them. But more times than not, you're going to end up with a listing, and you're going to end up with a lot of them. And there's some big leaders out there, which is probably a good segue into some of these names that some of you guys have probably seen. Mark Spain is the number one real estate agent in the country. Mark advertises with one consistent message in all the markets that he serves. He's also the heaviest user on our platform. And the way he markets himself is just guaranteed sale, right? "I've got a guaranteed offer on your home." So all of his mailers, postcards, billboards, television commercials, all of those things have that one centralized message of guaranteed sale. And what Mark's able to do then is he then and is built a process where he gets the seller all available options. And what he means by that is he gives them the MLS option, and I'll show you what that looks like. He gets an offer from us, and he goes and gets the offer from some of the iBuyers in his markets. And then he delivers all of those options to the seller. And I tested this for about 18 months with Mark before we launched the product. And what we learned is that the more options that we brought the seller, the higher his conversion rate on listing appointments was every single time. So it was pretty awesome that we walked through that. But you see some other options, and some of these are maybe more localized to my markets in Phoenix. But we had a company here called 72 Sold that was acquired by Keller Williams, and they were doing something very similar, right? I'll sell your home in 72 hours. Where do you think that offer came from, right? So they would come inside of our place, they would get that offer from us immediately, and that was the first offer that they would present the seller. Sometimes that offer would hit, sometimes that offer didn't hit, right? And that was okay, but at least the seller got what they wanted. These other guys are doing similar things in our markets as well. So we like to think of ourselves kind of at the center of the transaction, right? We're the dot connector between the supply and the demand in a marketplace. And oops, I'm screen stuck a little bit here. So one of the things I'll share with you guys is, you hear a lot of like negative press about institutions or guys that are buying thousands of homes to rent. So like take a look at this graph here. So this is real. So you've got about of all the housing stock in the country, about 25% of the housing stock today is rental property, is owned by a real estate investor, right? So if you take that rental stock and you break it down to who actually owns that rental stock, those big companies that I was talking about, they represent about 2% of that entire marketplace. That means that 90% of the marketplace is owned by investors who own 9 or less properties. Those are people like us that are just buying real estate to create wealth. And so while these big guys get a lot of press, it's because they're buying a lot at a short period of time, but it would take them 30 years to catch up to the sheer aggregation of that's been built by these mom and pop investors. So what we sought out to do was build a marketplace for these mom and pop investors where they could actually tap in and access this inventory, just like an institution or a REIT has in the past. And so we started building the marketplace to be able to do that. So the way that we work with agents is pretty simple. Agents come to us, they submit the property address to their agent portal account through Easy Street Offers. I'll show you guys what that looks like in just a second. So this slide says 48 hours, but within 4 minutes, you guys are actually going to get a cash offer presented to you that you can deliver to your client. So that's probably the biggest update, which Larry and I talked about last week. Is he reached out to me and said, "Hey, what's new?" And I said, "Well, actually, we're launching our 4-minute offer." And he said, "Well, how the heck are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, you've got 20 years worth of data. You can start to actually aggregate this using AI." And so what we've been able to do now is deliver what we believe is a really strong and educated offer on behalf of our investor group to you guys within 4 minutes. We got a lot of feedback within our first year of putting the product out in the market that 48 hours was just too long. A lot of sellers, if they're called about instant offer, they really want it instantly. They needed it faster. So we had to figure out a way to aggregate all of these buyers and deliver that offer within 4 minutes. So now when you guys submit to Easy Street Offers, you'll get that initial offer signal from us within 48 hours. Your job then is to just present that offer to the seller. That offer, like I say, is indicative of what our buyers are willing to pay for that property. It doesn't mean that that's for sure what they're going to pay, either high or low. It's just giving you a general range of like, yeah, this is generally what we think that offer price is going to be. Your job is to present that as an option to the seller and then either generate a counter offer for them, or if that offer is palatable to them, say, look, let me go back to them and I'll finalize this offer for you. Within 48 hours of that finalization request, we'll deliver back a final offer on that property. But at least now you know what the seller is up to, and you can start working with that seller to go. So think of it this way: the agent submits the property into us. We then generate this instant offer for you. Once you kick it back to us and you've got a seller that's really interested in selling your property for cash, then we're going to kick it out to all the buyers in our database. Those buyers have 48 hours to come back and give us a solid offer on that property. And then we're going to send that final offer back to you guys. In a lot of cases, agents are getting 4 to 5 offers on that property after they respond to us on that initial offer request. So let me dive into product. And I think you guys will enjoy this a little bit better.
Yeah, and then Dan, I would imagine, for you guys to provide that, as tight as possible initial offer to final offer, I would imagine that the data input that the agent can provide is going to probably help make that as homogeneous as possible. Or like the more that we feed the system, the better you guys can be accurate with your numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we, in a given day, we see about 350 off-market or pre-MLS submissions in all the markets that we serve on a daily basis. So, that's a pretty fair amount of property submissions coming inside of the platform, which gives us, a pretty good idea of like where the market is. Um, but I think what's probably more important is our aggregation of mom and pop investors. So we're adding about 100 new investors to the platform every single week. Those mom and pop investors are constantly coming in because, investor may come into us and they're doing a 1031 exchange and they might have $100,000 to spend. We spend it tomorrow, I've got to replace that investor. So we're constantly replacing the investors in the database. I should also mention that, because of my background working with those large institutions, they're all buyers on our platform too. So for a long time, that was the symbiotic relationship that Larry and I had, was just working. Like, he knew my connection to all of those institutions. And so he would send me all of his pre-MLS listings, and then I would generate these offers on behalf of those buyers. This process works exactly that same way. So all of those large buyers are using our platform to acquire their off-market or pre-MLS inventory too. So in a lot of cases, you're getting an offer from those institutions as well, through our platform. So we're going to send you all offers, and we try to keep it as simple as possible. So when we get wrapped up with the call today, so those of you that don't have an Easy Street Offers account, it's free to use. So it's completely free to use Easy Street Offers. There's nothing, no cost to this. I'm not collecting your credit card or anything from you today. Completely free to you all the way through the process. The way that we monetize is we represent the buyer as the buyer's broker in the transaction. You guys always represent the seller. So if you bring us an opportunity, you're going to represent the seller in the transaction. We're going to represent the buyer, and the buyer pays us. So you don't have to worry about negotiating for your seller on our fee. That's just for you to decide. So whatever you negotiate with the seller is between you and the seller. There are no service fees, so we're not charging any blind service fees or anything. Everything is very transparent. I'll show you what that looks like, as we look at a couple of these requests. But this is an Easy Street Offers agent dashboard that you guys are looking at here. So when you log in, this is what you'll get. If you guys want to drop into the chat, or when we wrap up today, send us your email address and my team will connect with you to make sure that you get an account set up inside of our platform. Again, completely free to you. You just simply come inside of here and you request your cash offer. Ooh, let me go back. There we go. So I'm going to pop in an address, 4617 South Carmine. And you see that the system found the asset right away. So now we know where this asset is. And my screen got in my way. There we go. Take it to the next step, which is really just, I want to learn a little bit more about this asset from you. So the property is going to say it's off market. We're going to drag in all the property information that we can. So in this particular case, you can see the system says it's a 3-2. We're just going to ask that you verify that information. Maybe the seller has modified the asset or done something different to it. Let us know if it's got an extra bedroom. Check on our square footage, make sure all of that's available, or that's right to us too. Looks like this is probably off on this one. And this one does have a garage, so I'm going to mark it that it does have a 2-car garage and does not have a pool. One of the big things that's important to us is property condition. So you'll see over here on the right-hand side, you can flip through all of these property condition definitions. So this is our definition of what this means. So if you take a look at this, like this property that's in good condition, it's going to give you a definition of what we believe is good. Again, this is just helping us underwrite the deal. Like, we very much need to understand the condition in order to get to the value. In a lot of cases, I understand that, if you're coming to us prior to going to the listing presentation, you may not have photos on the property, right? So if you don't have photos, you got to make sure you're getting some flavor of property condition from the seller before you submit it to us. Otherwise, it's going to throw off our offer number. So let's say in this case that this property is move-in ready, and the property is vacant. Down here at the bottom, our AI tool is picking up any sort of signals that you guys are sending us. So let's say, for example, that you're working with a home seller that maybe they're getting into a new build and they need to clear that contingency to get into the new build. Let us know that here, that the seller wants to sell the property and potentially lease it back for a period of time until they can get into their new build. Or maybe they, are moving into a destination property and they're trying to work on a simultaneous close, and a late checkout would be valuable to them. because our buyers aren't restricted by some sort of like a big bank or a big brother looking over their shoulder, but they become very nimble. They become very flexible through the terms. So if you've got a situation where you've got a seller that needs some flexibility on closing timelines, or maybe it's important to them that they want to lease the property back, or any of those kind of those nuanced terms that are subjective to them, try to let us know that up front, because we've got a lot of buyers that we can match this to that would be interested specifically in something like that.
Hey, and
So the
Dan,
next
one
step
other
is we're gonna,
thing, if I may, really
yeah,
quick. So I'm noticing on
yeah,
there
no,
you
go.
have like 55 plus properties that have like maybe are in an HOA. There are some iBuyers out there that are very specific about like they don't touch anything like that in a lot of cases, right? They want
Right.
as cookie cutter as possible. And I don't say that in a derogatory way, but a 55 plus community just may not fit their buy box. But it sounds like because you have such a broad array of investors that are really looking at that one-off opportunity for themselves, it sounds like there's a lot more flexibility potentially on your platform.
Yeah, for sure. So, in all the markets that we serve, so we're in 46 states in the country today. So we pretty much have coverage in all the MSAs, except maybe the high Northeast markets. And where I think that's a good point, because what makes us different there is our buy boxes are really wide. So what I would say to you is submit us everything that's under $1 million in all those markets. If you guys are in California or Washington State, we have investors looking up to 1.5 million in those markets. But anything, 55 plus, HOA restrictions, any of those, they just become, flexible terms that our buyers look at. So think of these as, mom and pop buyers. They're not restricted to some sort of, like I said, big brother that's coming down on them and saying, hey, this is the box by which we need to buy in. It really just comes down to dollars and cents, and how these buyers start to think about it. So as a next step in our process, and this is really just kind of one of the last couple steps here, is just we're going to ask you guys for a guidance price. So, what we mean by a guidance price is maybe you've had a conversation with the seller and they've given you a signal on what they're looking for as part of the property, or as value of the property. Or maybe like you have done a little research and you think the property is worth X, right? So let's say, for example, if this property is worth 555,000. This again is not a number that we anchor to. We're just trying to get a signal on like what you think this property's worth, or what the seller maybe thinks this property's worth. Next step we're going to drop into is photos. So, you can drag and drop the photos if you've got them here. If you don't worry about it. There's a couple other things that we can do. One is, after you submit the property to us, and when you go to finalize that offer with us, we're going to ask you again for those photos. So don't worry about the photos so much up front. But one of the things that we built into the tool most recently is we have this request photos from seller option. So I don't know if you guys have maybe gotten an insurance claim recently, and you notice that the insurance adjuster doesn't even come out to your house anymore to look at your car with a dent in it. They send you a link to take your own pictures. And so very along with this password, and then the seller can actually upload photos into our system on your behalf. So, it will walk them through taking the photos through the property. As a last step, we're just going to have you review the submission. So you're going to check all the property information that you sent over to us, just to double check everything and make sure that it's completely accurate. And then go ahead and hit submit. Once we hit submit, that property then is now submitted inside of our platform and ends up in what we call my request. So think of this as maybe like your pizza tracker. So this is the pizza tracker of all of the listings that that you've ever sent over to us. And you've got full access to see where the status of all of those properties are. So let's take a look at one of these properties inside of the tool. So when you've now submitted that property to us, within 4 minutes, you're going to get your initial offer. So you're going to get an email from us, you're going to get a text, and you might even get a call from our AI machine that says, hey, we've got an offer ready, available for you. Go ahead and log back into your system. You'll see that offer now. This is what we call our initial offer. So inside of the product, you'll see the initial offer. You'll see a few things stand out is, the buyer's premium. So the buyer pays our fee. So there's no cost, again, to the seller or to you to submit the property to us. And we try to break it down to give you some sort of like a net proceeds. The other thing that we're going to share with you is regarding the terms. And the idea is we really want you guys to focus on these terms with the seller. So as you're presenting this option to the seller, let's talk about like close of escrow date, right? Because when I was in production and I was meeting with sellers, one of the things I noticed is that when I brought them an offer to the listing presentation, I had a significantly different conversation with them than I was if I was just doing a regular listing presentation. So if I could bring this to them and I can say, hey, I've got an offer for you, and these guys can close in 10 days. They're going to put down a $5 earnest or $5,000 earnest deposit. And their inspection period is 5 days. And they've now waived a warranty. And they're flexible maybe on that close date. And you start to learn a little bit about what the seller situation is. So let's say, for example, that I put on here that the close of escrow date was 30 days. Maybe the seller looks at you, and goes, oh my gosh, like I can't close in 30 days. Like there's no way I can't move in 30 days. But now you as the listing agent have a really strong signal of like where the seller's position are. Maybe they can be a little bit more patient. Maybe time is really important to them and timing becomes really important to them. And they weren't as prepared as you thought they were kind of going into the situation. Pricing too, maybe we get down to net proceeds and they go, gosh, like that's just not enough money. Like I need to be at X number. Like this is our bottom line. Like how nice would it be to meet with a seller right at that first listing appointment and know what their bottom line is so that that going into the situation that you've got to get something above that number. That really starts to help the situation along. So again, this is the initial offer, and this is available to you to print. Take this to your listing presentations. You just simply go up here and export this, and you're good to go. The other tool that I think is probably valuable for you guys is what we call our seller's net sheet. So you just tab over to the seller net sheet. And what you'll see here is this is actually a tool for you guys to be able to use to build, this listing presentation. So, I get asked a lot. They're like, Dan, how did you guys sell 4,600 assets? And this is how we did it. Like, this is truly what it was. The highest producing agent on my team was my nanny 6 months prior to doing this. So she had no real estate experience whatsoever. And I would just send her out on a listing appointment with a net sheet. And, every single time she would come back with an option. One of these options was going to work for that potential seller. So the way that the net sheet tool works is, as the offers come in, they're going to pop right into your net sheet, and you can take these in and out of the tool. But the other thing that you can do is add your other options in here. So you can see our initial offer here, and then there's a couple other cash offers in this demo. But let's say I want to add another offer. Maybe that's an MLS option, and I want to bring that MLS option to the seller. I just simply add that. And now what I can show, I can move you guys, there you go, is I can tab over and I can actually see the MLS option is available there for me. And I can change, that MLS option. So let's say this is 550,000, right? And I can start to now go through this, and what I'm building is a net sheet for the seller. And now what I'm doing, like what I like to say is we're making you Travelocity of real estate agents, right? If you could bring all available options and compare them apples to apples for the seller, that would be pretty cool. And so now you can actually do that, bring all of these options to them. We give you some cool charts and graphs, so everything's kind of graphed out and makes you look, super smart and super important when you bring this to the seller. And you just simply export this out. And when you export this out, it's going to print it out into a PDF that you can bring to them. And you can show them again all of these different options. So, that's the general basis of what we do. If you want to accept one of our offers, like I say, is on an initial offer, this one is expired, but on an initial offer, what you'll see here is it's going to say counter or finalize or reject. And so that's all we ask, is just simply respond to us on each one of those so that we know where the status is. My team will continue to follow up and just make sure that, if we haven't heard from you in 5 days, that's when our offer expires. But we just want to hear from you guys to let us know where this opportunity stands. We've got a ton of resources available for you guys too. So let me make sure you guys are on the right screen. Yep. So inside of our resources hub, so a lot of agents asked us, like, how do you market this way? Like, how do you even do this? What do you say to agents, or what do you say to consumers? Inside of our agent vault here, this is free access to all of the marketing materials that you could ever think of. So, one of the cool things in there is you have like an instant offer website. So let's say, for example, right now, you don't have a cash offer button on your website. What I always say to agents is, look, like if you don't have a cash offer button on your website, the problem is that you're telling your consumer that you don't do it. So you're sending them, like, if they're stuck with this choice, if they want to sell their home quickly or they want to see what the value of their home is from one of these companies, you're making them choose between trusted advisor and iBuyer. Don't make them choose. Just have that option be available, right? Have that button there so that you can do it. So if you guys don't have that, you can download our website template inside of there. And when you're done, it looks similar to this. So this is very similar to what one of our cash offer websites looks like. And so this is just a landing page that you now can collect that lead from. But inside of that agent resources vault too, you're going to get all access to all of our digital ads, all of our mailers, postcards, letters, anything that you would use to be able to market yourself this way with the message are completely templated in there for you, and it's completely free. And then as a last piece, we just have a community. It's a Facebook group community. It's all filled with agents. My team's in there to answer any of your questions as you guys start to dive into this stuff. And we're completely available to you guys to work through these transactions. But with that, I'll leave you guys with some questions.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I want to ask you, Larry's popped on as well. So Larry, if you want to interject at any moment, man, feel free. But it looks like the net sheet, it'll kind of auto-populate based on how many offers there are. That's what will show for you on that net sheet. And then
Correct. Yeah.
strategically, I'm curious to know, when it comes to taking more listings, you're finding, from what I am understanding, that people are finding more success when they show up with this already done in lieu of sitting down with the seller, having a conversation, coming back with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think that the strongest option, right? Let's say it's competitive. And I think most markets now, like most sellers are getting a little competitive where they're bringing in 2 or 3 agents to interview at the time. So picture yourself across the table from a seller that's now interviewed 2 other agents. They went through, a listing presentation filled with like pictures of their family and their dog and all the things that make them a great listing agent, which is great. But then you show up as the next option and you actually brought them offers. The seller, like never met a seller that says, "Hey, I want to list my home." Every seller I talk to says, "I want to sell my home," right? So they didn't call you to list it; they called you to sell it. Show up to them with offers, and you'll see a huge difference in the conversation that you have with the seller by bringing that value right out of the gate.
No, I love that, Dan. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. And guys, the floor is open. What questions do you have for Dan, and how you could see this platform helping you boost your production?
Hey, Will, Dan, my name's Robert. Good to see you, buddy. Man, this was badass. I think the biggest thing that I'm taking is if you're a listing agent, you're going to crush it with this platform, with this product. So, I mean, I work with FSBOs, expireds, and pre-foreclosures, and this is right up their alley. This is awesome.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it gets you in the door and the conversation begins. Now you've got some really good bona fide competing against the open door and offer pads, quality product that you can at least get your foot in the door and it actually makes sense. So huge thing. Question for you. Do you have any stats in terms of list price to actually offer price? Are you guys, do you have I know your buy box is pretty wide and pretty common sense, but do you have any kind of stats to show that market value, is obviously what able, willing buyers are ready to pay, but anything from like list price to offer price, any kind of stats on that?
Yeah, I think it's probably better served. Thanks for the question. That's a good point. Is probably in like market value to like what our buyers are willing to pay for the asset, right? 'Cause I think that's those list price and market value are probably two different things too. But we like to think of things in market value numbers. If for example the property is in a neighborhood where my buyer can get a 6% yield on the purchase of the property by renting it out, and the rental rate in that neighborhood is great, we have offers that will come in at 100% of fair market value for that property. So what I'm saying is that our offers are completely driven by what that property is worth in the eyes of the investor. And that is typically like a yield spread or a cap rate. that we underwrite and evaluate to. So generally across the board today, in most of the markets that we serve, like which market are you in, Robert?
I'm in California.
Okay. So yeah, like in your market, it's probably not a strong rental market today, right? The cost of capital in the market is expensive, and the rental rates have actually stayed the same, and in some areas of the state have started to dip a little bit. So as a result, our offer price by buy and hold investors is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 85 to 87% of fair market value. But a home flipper might look at that opportunity and go, okay, I can pay them 90% of fair market value for that property because I'm going to go in, I'm going to fully renovate this thing. And the ARV on that property is significantly higher. So, it's a very mixed bag. So it's not like a one size fits all, here's the number. It's very much indicative of like that street, that neighborhood is where those offers are going to land. And so what I say to agents is, look, like in some opportunities, we're going to be amazing. We're going to be the best offer. In some neighborhoods, we're not going to be, and that's okay. That's actually a good thing. Like bring our offer still, show the seller that that's not an option. Like if you could eliminate consumer doubt and build credibility with consumers by being transparent and bringing them those options, you're winning. That was what I used to teach my team is, look, there's really two things to do with the listing presentation. Build credibility and eliminate consumer doubt. Don't leave them at the kitchen table thinking that there is another option for them because they'll go chase it without you, right? So bring that option with you.
Hey, just a quick follow-up to that. Sorry, I don't mean to monopolize this, but
No.
In terms of repairs, are you seeing offers being submitted, sight unseen, and then coming back and any kind of adjustments? What's your stance on adjustments to after contract in terms of requests for repairs or a price reduction?
Yeah, so after that initial offer comes over to you guys, let me tab over and show you one. So on the initial offer, there is going to be a repair estimate. So we're going to tell you guys what we think that we're going to have to do to renovate that property. You might know right out of the gate that number is too high, right? We have just overestimated that number. And that's okay. You've got to signal back to us. So when you go to counteroffer final number so that you and I are both fully aligned.
Hey, Dan, I think we're losing you a touch. Robert, that's not me, right?
No, you know what? I was actually just thinking, I'm glad that you said that because I thought it was my Starlink.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
This is good stuff, man. This is those agents on the call, man. They take more listings, make more money. That's this platform is going to help you. This is awesome.
Yeah, we'll wait for him to come back, but I'm also going to ask a couple questions about like the counteroffer option, like how their policy on countering, obviously multiple of them, what that might look like. Oh, you know what? He's probably going to. Oh, there we go. Hey there, Dan. Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
No, you're fine, but you're
booted.
back. You're back.
Okay, I got booted. Yeah. So did I answer your question? Okay, Robert.
It absolutely did. I certainly appreciate it.
Okay.
And Dan, your screen is not sharing now. I don't know if you want to go back while we take on some more questions. One of the questions I was going to ask you next was about the counteroffer, which is, that's pretty awesome. It's not just here it is, take it or leave it. Tell us a little bit about, what the counteroffer looks like. Is it something we just type in, and what has been like, what's the reasonability that you see when people are putting in counters in the platform?
Yeah. So, a lot of times, let's say you're sitting down with a seller and they might be sitting there going, okay, this all sounds great. Like I'm actually interested in selling my property this way. Like I love all the terms. I love the flexibility of fixing my close date. I love the flexibility of like knowing when I'm moving, and I love all of that, but I don't like the price. Like I want to be able to counteroffer this price. That's when you guys can come back to us and go inside of the product and actually counter that price. When you counter that price, it's actually super simple. I'm trying to find a live offer for you to be able to do it. If I can't, no big deal, but you'll be able to, all you simply do is just go in
And your
there,
screen
hit
isn't
counter.
sharing right now, just FYI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking for one in my demo
No
account
worries.
that's got a live offer for you. Yeah, so you'll just hit the counter offer button inside of here. And when you hit the counter offer button, it's just going to ask you which terms you want to counter. And you'll go inside of it and just simply counter back those terms. Like I say, a lot of times that initial offer is very much just like the initial offer. That's really all that we're trying to get to, is like, this is the range. We encourage you to counter. Let us know where our buyers need to be in order to transact on the transaction. Like, we're going to do our best to try to meet you there. And if we can't, that's okay. Because then you can kind of go back to the seller and say, look, I countered them back. They can't get there. They're going to be at this number, and this is as high as they're going to get. Maybe the seller moves off their number, maybe they don't. But the counter offer process all happens inside of the product, and you can counter offer multiple times. So just let us know where that number needs to be. But again, at that point, it becomes a very traditional transaction. Like, you're in communication with my team throughout that process.
Love it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I just wanted to jump in. I had service. I'm at a gas station here in the middle of nowhere. So Dan, I just wanted to say thank you so much. From reading the comments and the parts that I picked up on, man, it seems like people are getting a ton out of it. And guys, I was beta testing this like in the early infancy stages, and it has grown so much to make it so easy for you guys to use. So I would lean into this, especially as this market continues to shift and turn, because this gives you so many options for your listings, for anybody, any house that you're going after. FSBOs, expired, off-market deals. Like, the opportunities here are endless of what you could do to leverage this.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Yeah, we've come a long way in a year. It's been a long learning curve, but we've got about a little over 9,000 agent users on the platform today, and we've got heavy users and some that are using it lightly. But what I can say of the ones that were most successful is they've just made it part of their entire process, right? Every time they go on a listing appointment, they go bring the net sheet. They're showing all available options, and it leads to this conversation and this dialogue, and oftentimes a quicker close or a quicker transaction. And maybe one thing I'll add before the next question is just we will look at MLS options too. So if you guys have some properties that are sitting on the MLS, and you may have to go to the seller and have the worst conversation, which is I didn't do my job conversation. I didn't sell your home this month at that particular price, and you're going to beg for a price reduction from them. Try something different. Try to bring them an offer. Submit the property to us and have an offer conversation with them. Bring that cash offer to them and say, hey, I've got an offer on your property. Let's meet.
Yeah, love it. That's brilliant. Because that's a lot easier conversation, right? At least we're not just throwing more mud against the wall. Like, let's hope this price works. At least you have something to substantiate a different offering as far as the price goes, because it's literally what a buyer is suggesting they're willing to pay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the value of a home is what a buyer's willing to pay, right? So,
Amen.
if you bring that offer to them, you've done your job, you've done your fiduciary responsibility and brought them an offer. Might not be what they want, right? But now you can say, look, okay, then we're going to continue to play this game on the market. And that's a game of chance. There's no certainty available in the open market, but there is certainty available. It just might come with a cost. And the analogy I give my sellers is I say, look, like, I don't like to pay $25 for a cheeseburger, but there are times where I'm at my office and I need a cheeseburger, and I'll get on Uber Eats and I'll order a cheeseburger, and I pay that premium for it. You're doing the same thing here. There's a cost to convenience. There's a cost to control. There's a cost to all those things. Like, it's just a matter of, like, are you willing to do it? And a lot of agents are like, gosh, I don't know if my sellers would be willing to take a discount. I was shocked, right? Open Door came into my market 9 years ago and started making offers on properties at $50,000 or $60,000 under market value, and I thought that they would never buy a house, and they bought thousands. So, my thought on what consumers' relationships to equity is or was is completely changed, right? It's now become very subjective, and their relationship to their equity is just different than what we thought it was, for sure.
That's interesting. That alone is an interesting concept, like what their actual relationship is with equity.
Yeah.
Man, I might even want you to dive into that. But there is a question in the chat box about the Las Vegas market. Do you know if you
Yep.
guys get close to the $1 million mark in Las Vegas?
Yeah, for sure. We've got buyers that'll pay close to $1 million. There's kind of two asset types. One is the flip. Obviously, there's a lot of people moving to Vegas, so they are looking to renovate and sell those properties. So flips are great. And the short term rental, the luxury short term, is really interesting to a lot of buyers in that market as well.
Awesome. And what other questions do you guys have? Feel free to unmute.
Well, I guess my question would be, who's prospecting FSBOs expired and pre-foreclosures? Because here we go. This is awesome.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that message of, I've got a buyer that wants to buy your home is a strong one, right? They kind of doesn't matter that your history or I know you guys have all been working with Larry for a while, so you guys are all seasoned agent, but imagine if you're a new agent and you don't have that pedigree, you don't have that history, and you can't lean on a tradition of, I've sold 100 homes this last year. Going in and say, I've got a buyer for your property, opens the door. Like they'll listen then, right? And now you can actually sit down and show it to them. So get you right in front of them. Good point.
You know what it does also is it actually gives you a bona fide offer, because most agents are taught, I have a buyer, when they really don't. This is a perfect way to actually have a bona fide offer, to sit down with them and actually walk them through that offer, build that relationship, and then the relationship starts and you're good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know,
Hey,
man.
Dan, how do I sign up as an investor?
Yeah. So, Bonnie, would you do us a favor? I've got someone from my team on the call too. Her name's Bonnie. Would you drop your contact information into the chat too, so the team can get all of your contact information? But yeah, as an investor in our platform, and this is a great point. All of you guys can be investors in our platform. Every agent, I always say should be an investor. I mean, if you're not playing the game, what are we doing? And you guys are building wealth this way, and maybe looking at flip opportunities this way would be amazing. Or maybe you're going to buy a couple rentals this year, would be great. It's completely free as an investor to join our platform too. It takes about 30 minutes. You're going to sit down with our team. We're going to build a buy box with you. We're actually going to build a full underwriting model with you. And then, our product on the buyer side looks quite a bit different than this. But we serve our buyers about 3,700 different data points so that they can actually make a really quality indicative offer on these properties based on data and information. Like my whole goal with investors is they can sleep at night knowing that they made a sound investment decision. And so that's super important to us. You guys as agents can also refer your buyers onto our platform and earn a referral fee. So you can refer your buyers here. What I say to that is, like, agents are like, well, why would I refer you my buyer? Well, we might find your buyer without you. Don't let us do that. Our buyers, like I said, we're onboarding them 90 of them a week. Bring them. So just send them here. We're not seeing every deal in the market. We see a lot, but we don't see every deal. So continue doing what you're doing, but also then, put your buyer inside of our platform too, so that they're getting access to the inventory too.
And they're basically going through us, or are they cutting us out?
No, you're just going to get paid a referral fee. So you would get paid a
Okay.
referral fee on every time that they transact. So, we try not to have anybody between us and the buyer. It just creates like an extra layer of communication. And so we try to be as quick as possible with these offers and counter offers. So having someone else between us creates a little bit of a delay. We'll give you access to their account though, so that you can see the status and you can see everything that they're bidding on. Maybe they're going to have you property manage it. And we'll go over all of that with you when you make the referral. But we don't, we're not property managers. We're certainly not going to be their listing agent ever. We're just not built to be competitive with you in any way. So it's just an option for you to be able to bring them in so that they get access to that inventory.
Oh, what is there like a set referral fee per, or is it flexible, or how does that work?
Yeah, so right now it's a 25% referral fee in perpetuity on every property that they buy on the platform. But um, let's say for example that they are a flipper, right? And they buy that flip property on our platform. You're going to list that property on the way out. So you'd make a 25% referral fee on the acquisition of the property that they found on our platform, and then you would then make your full listing commission when they go list the property. We don't participate in any of that.
Wait, 25% of what?
Our buyer's premium. So we charge the
Mm.
buyers a buyer's premium when they acquire the asset.
Oh, gotcha. Cool.
Great question. What other questions do you guys have? I saw a few others unmuted. If you guys want to, feel free and ask.
I see a couple. Kristen asked, "Are we in Kalispell?" Not yet in Montana. So that's one of the markets we're not serving yet. But hopefully by the end of the year we'll have nationwide coverage in Montana for you too. Patricia said, "Ohio, yes. Kentucky, yes." So both of those markets we're serving. Richmond, yes. New York City, no. So unfortunately, not yet in New York City. That's a tough market up there with New York. It's from a legal standpoint, it makes it really difficult for us, but not that. Minnesota, yes. Washington, yes.
I love it. They're just names pop. Here we
Savannah,
go.
yes. Savannah, yep. They got you covered in Savannah.
Southern California. I'm
So,
imagining.
yep,
Yes.
yep, yep. SoCal is great. Yeah, we've got a lot of buyers in our network that live in SoCal that even buy outside of California market too. So very interested in buying outside of California, but they will buy in California too.
And Dan, one more question from me, if possible. So you mentioned something, and I think it's pretty interesting. You know, this concept of like homeowners' equity and their relationship to it. Um, I'll speak for myself. My professional opinion around that is that their relationship to it is one in which they're married to that equity at the highest it's ever been at any given moment, and they want every single penny of it. And so I'm really interested to hear how your experience with engaging with people where it's obviously questioning that desire to
Mhm.
have all of it and what you've learned from it. So if you don't mind, share with us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that was a big aha for me. When I was playing this game in the retail side of things, and I remember sitting down with a seller and they were like an older couple and they said they wanted to sell their home. And I walked in the place and it was immaculate. Like you could eat off the floor. It was beautiful and ready to go. And I knew that this property, like in my mind, immediately I would just take it and list it. They didn't need to do any updating. It was ready to rock and roll. We could list it. So when I presented to them the MLS option, I kind of gave them a sense of like how long the property would potentially stay on the market, how many open houses I would do, and how many showings I could predict that they might have to deal with. And I could start to see them kind of twisting in the chair, and they were just not feeling comfortable. So then went down and I showed them the cash offer option, which in their particular case was probably like $70,000 less than their MLS go to market option. And their ears started to perk up. And, all of a sudden, what they shared with me was that they said, well, this is actually really interesting to us because our daughter's having a baby. We've got to move across the country. I remember that they had to move from Phoenix to Florida. We've got to move to Florida and we need to be out there in like 45 days. Like we have to be. So for them, it was more important to move to Florida than it was to get that extra, $50,000, $60,000 at chance, right, on the open market. And they were willing to trade that for certainty. And that was really critical for them. And so there's just been a number of cases like that where you sit down with these people and you understand that speed and convenience are just really important to them, and they're willing to give up some equity to make that happen. But it's in those cases that we don't share that option with them that we end up with egg on our face, right? Or we list the property and they're kind of going, why isn't it selling? Why isn't it selling? And then you find out later that they had to sell it. Like they needed actually to sell it in 30 days, and they didn't really share that with you up front. And so you weren't able to guide them appropriately from the get-go. So, I think that in every case now that a seller is just becoming really, really subjective. And, in some markets, like in my market in Phoenix, we have home sellers that have seen, upwards of 40% equity in some of their homes, right? And, that's monopoly money to them. They don't like, they're not dealing with it like you and I are every single day. So to them, it's like, yeah, my home is worth that much, but what does it, what does it really mean? I can't tap into it. I can't access it. So the relationship to it is just different. When I first started real estate, I worked for a broker that told me that, we got to get the highest dollar in the shortest period of time. And when I run into her now, I'm like, God, you were off on that one. That wasn't the case. Like if we could have brought cash offer at that time, it would have been great. And one of the things that Larry and I were talking about the other day was, with the REO market and this wave of potential foreclosures and short sales and things that are coming down the pipe. Like these options that we've got now and access to these investors didn't exist in 2007, 2008 when we saw that huge market cycle. So the only option that we really had was like list the property as MLS and get that property sold. So, it was absolutely, it's absolutely critical now that we've got these options available. So if you've got somebody in distress, like what an amazing option for them. And had these options been available at that point, we probably could have saved a lot more people from foreclosure, during that period of time. So we're super excited that we're here now. And hopefully that this is a softer landing for the market if we do see some sort of a price adjustment or market correction.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent point. And it's interesting because, the listing agent brain of mine is still like, no, they need every penny possible. But then, reality is that you've worked and there are other iBuyers as well that have worked to acquire thousands and thousands and thousands of homes across the country. So clearly we can only argue with reality so much. Thank you for sharing that, Dan, because I think that is a really, like, I don't know how many of us have access to someone like you, for example, that have really been this highly involved in the volume to really get that clarity. So I appreciate that. Any last questions that you guys want to ask Dan before we wrap for today? And make sure that, before we're done here, type in your email address if you guys want your account for Easy Street before we wrap up so we can get all of that in the chat box.
Yeah, and then Bonnie said that she dropped a couple times. She's dropped her contact information into the chat too. So if you guys didn't see that, check in the chat there and you can chat with Bonnie. She can get you guys signed up either as, an investor or agent on the platform, or maybe both, whatever you decide. And again, it's free. We're never going to ask you for a credit card, I promise. I've been an agent, been on the other side of this. We're not doing it. So completely free to you guys to use the tool.
I don't see Bonnie's info. Do you guys?
Did it not come through?
No,
you're
maybe you
right.
sent it
I don't
private.
see it either. I was just looking for it.
Oh, let me send it again. Sorry. Let me send it to. Oh, that's why. Silly.
Send
I'm
it
sorry.
direct.
Send it to the AI. Here we go.
There we go.
There's that.
There we
Here's
go.
There we go. This is the first one I sent. So just my introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Bonnie. Nice to meet y'all. And yeah, I'm picking up all your email addresses as you're dropping them in, and I will reach out here shortly.
Awesome. I really appreciate it, Dan. Bonnie, thank you for joining us as well. Like, really excited about having a chance to see this platform, understanding how to really add one more yet very powerful tool to our belt. I really appreciate, Dan, that not only is it, an agent partnership model in the truest sense, but it's also a really diversified investor model on the back end as well. Like that just feels really different. And for that reason, it just seems to open up a lot more opportunity. So with that, Dan, I want to thank you for being on this morning. If anyone has anything else, make sure that you reach out to Bonnie. Dan, I'm assuming that's the best way to connect with you guys with any questions or any other needs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And my happy to share my email too. I'm just Dan at Easy Street Offers. So you guys can reach me at Dan at Easy Street Offers too. But and if you happen to miss any of that, you can just go to easystreetoffers.com. And there's a sign up link right on our website too. So check it out there. But I think Bonnie probably grabbed all of your email addresses. So she'll get you guys
Yeah,
all set up.
I'm working through it right now. We've got a
Even
lot
easier.
Cool.
just came through. So excited.
Cool.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you all very much. I'm not going to shut this down for a moment, Bonnie, so that way you have a few more minutes to grab everything, so you're good there. If anything gets missed, I can always save the chat box as well. But happy Friday, everyone. I want you guys to go out there and have an incredible week. Come back to this call next Friday with some great wins. I want you guys like speaking over each other with all the goodness happening, especially leveraging Easy Street for even more business. Dan, Bonnie, thank you guys again. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you guys next week. And as I mentioned, I'm going to leave this open for a moment so you guys can grab those email addresses.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. In fact, Bonnie, you let me know when you're all set, and that way we'll wrap.
Okay, perfect. And I don't want to keep you, Larry. If you do want to if you can send it, that would be fine too.
I'm very confident that he's got this recording to his Zoom, so I'm pretty sure he'll save it. But just to be safe, we're fine. Yeah, we're fine.
Okay.
If you need to take another minute, it's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to make sure we get these all. Cool. All right, I think I'm almost there. How's your Friday going?
It's going great. This is the first meeting of the day for us. Where are you guys located, Bonnie?
Arizona.
Oh,
Phoenix.
okay. Yeah, we're in the same time zone, I believe, right? Is it
Where
9
are you?
a.m. over there? California.
Yes. Yeah, right now we're the same time zone.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. Sometimes we'll change on you guys, which is kind of funky, but
Yeah.
How about your Friday? Going well so far?
It's going great. I love these and connecting with agents and everyone. It's so great. It's so good.
That's awesome. How long
Yeah.
have you been a part of Easy Street?
Not very long. Only
Okay.
almost 2 months.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
So, but I worked for Open Door
Oh, got it.
for almost over 8 years. So very early stages. So I'm very familiar with the industry.
Yeah, the industry, the model, like this way to engage. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so fun because when I was looking for a new role, I was like, this is just a perfect fit. I can help agents and investors, and there's no competition. So
that's super cool.
This is really cool. All right. Well, I got everyone. So I think we're good. Thank you again so much for having us.
Of course. It was really nice to meet you as well. You guys have a great week. And thank you again, Bonnie. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.